Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. On Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. It's so confusing right now. I was reading a paper, or not reading, but I was looking at the photos and the shape patterns of some of the physics papers that the humans write, or the ones that are, no, I don't think they're not alien papers. They're some form of, or maybe they, I don't really know. They algorithm some to my whatever feed on my Google string. I don't get much, but they found some process to give me photos to try to catch my attention, to alert me to like more important physics principles. So I guess that's from Strictnine. So there's this thing, like I know in physics principles, like at Strictnine, and at like whatever 3, since I'm born on 43rd Avenue in Bayside of things at the moment. It's been a continual quantum thread of truth down the spine of the fish island that I'm on, in this Queens County, or borough of Queens, whatever. There's something the physicians or the physics gifted, are able to document or write about being their passion, and somehow it's aligned with whatever I find on this whatever, this maxi iPad version of the internet, the front facing painted version. And I noticed a shape today, and it caught my attention immediately. And then, like an artwork piece, and then all of a sudden, above it, read imaginary numbers. And it was something to do with imaginary numbers, and then it had like geographical outside shapes, almost like constellations, being like written in star. And I contemplated the patterns on the inside of the photo, which are one form of like a geometric 3D pattern artwork piece, and then the outside scaffolding type, or interwebbing, whatever, with a black background. And it was so dramatic, and I just sat there and I was so intrigued by whomever put it together. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, imaginary numbers. Like somewhere there's somebody gifted and privileged enough to have known what they were, or what industry to seek out, or to chase after, that to get to that dream, to be able to participate at that level. I was not fortunate enough to have guidance or anyone who even knew, that I'm aware of. Not words in English, since it's where we were. So then it brings me to, I'm like, oh, well, the imaginary numbers, or that universal truth, that then run to imaginary best friend, who is an actual phenomenon, I suppose you could call him, and does exist, um, in what I think like in what we would call a parallel dimension, until we coexist as one. That is the best way to explain the relationship you were built and born for, that has been withheld well, I know it's been withheld from me and from him our whole life. I don't know why, that's the part that's unbeknownst to me, but I know it exists. Now, in this feral version of strays, it's like there are stray humans that wander in and out of New York City. I don't know how the ebb and flow is designed. I don't. But what I can say is at this point, it's very confusing. I don't know if it's an undeclared war, if it's an undeclared invasion, but or is the announcement in the city of this candidacy, of this secret vote of some sort to nominate someone that I'd never even heard of, and I have no idea of career or way of doing a background check. I mean, they just say that they're going to be mayor and put all these people in, but nobody has any idea who they really are. Outside of this secret group that's operating, I don't even know how to research that. Anyhow, so on on imaginary numbers, on an imaginary plane, there's I'm perfect and there's imperfect. And at the moment, the answer is yes. It's both, because of the divide in the parallel, with there being a set of imaginary numbers that align with my astrological, cosmological assurity of imperfect perfection. And at the moment, it's divided by a degree of something that needs to be closed, right? Or sutured or fissured or whatever. And it needs to coexist as a coaxial inside of one unit. But that's where Strictnine knows what that is. At the founder presidents that exist, and exist for a very special purpose and reason, as do I, outside of what the existential is doing around New York City at the moment. That seems more political. I'm more geospatially. I need to get to somewhere very important. And while I define what's being thrown at my visual, for important purposes, I have an even higher purpose in grand schematic and architecture. Psychologically, though, when I was younger, I don't know why, there was a big push on television about imaginary friends. That came out of nowhere. Like, in my grandfather's day and age, there was no imaginary friend like they talked about in this television visual art on the illuminated TV in New York City. Like, you would go out and play, and you'd be in your own little world playing, and that would be it. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're like, but do you see people? Do you have a friend that you see? And it's like, that's really creepy, depending on how you're asking that, but no. When I'm out alone, I'm usually out alone. Um, but in spiritual realm, again, and then that goes into like, now that I'm an adult, now then it goes into hallucinogens and all sorts of weird stuff. I had some guy come up on the street today and ask me something about a winter's itch. I'm like, I like my first reaction is that's really gross. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Like, but I'm like, or winter scratch. I'm like, I did scratch my face. I mean, like, again, it is winter, the season. I did scratch my face. I was like, but no, I had a pimple on top of that. This was annoying enough, and then I got a pimple. And he was like, oh, apparently Linda got a cyst on her nose, just like I had here. She popped it, and then she had a big red mark. I called her Rudolph for a few days, but it's now going on 3 weeks, and hers is not healing either. She has a problem with sometimes different rashes or scarring on the face out of nowhere. It's not genetic, it's was never before, but now it's just a healing issue. Again, it's weather pattern timed related. Um, this is a labeled fallout shelter for whatever that means. I'm pretty sure Strictnine probably knows. I have no way of figuring out what that is, but I know that I'm being plagued in the sense of it is painful by piezo electricity. If that's polonium and radium, I certainly feel it coursing through dangerously. I said to my I said to somebody the other day, I was like, it's almost like the articulation in my elbow. Sometimes when I go to grab for something, the space, the synapse in the synovial fluid around my elbow by the condyle, condyle something or other, it is almost like the electrolytes take on some kind of outside static electricity inside the synapse of the joint, and it just causes like unneeded pain, but it's almost like a jumping, arcing wattage or voltage that I can't see because it's not in my visible photons, it's not in my visible spectrum of light or energy. But I feel like a zap in my elbow as I go to reach for something and I try to hold it, which makes it like harder to hold things. It's a really weird environment to be in New York in this whatever as an A. I mean, again, I got a different blood grouping, different blood type. I'm A zone. I'm in an O zone. O zone's already confirmed they have a hole in it. But this goes back to imaginary friends. So I can tie that in on imaginary plane. In parallel dimension, you're born in one set of parallel dimension. There's another born in another parallel dimension, because you have two different POVs, being that you're separately entering into some subspace. But at some point, but you have that best friend in that connection through time and space in a neurally networked something special. And then at some point, you're supposed to coexist together in one space. That's where the humans have interfered with. And I thought that that was one sacred space that they were never, ever to war with or to harm or interfere or interpret for their own whatever they do. Because I really don't cognitively, I'm like, whatever. But I know that's where imaginary numbers and imaginary best friends with parallel dimension make a built for union between a very special man and a very special woman. And that's where I was to coexist and where I am still looking for closure. It's the one thing I have not obtained. I haven't even began to become something because I was withheld out of this very special coupling. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies broken. That's why these two useless marriage certificates to the two morons in New York, totally irrelevant for my purposes. I know they're important somewhere in avoiding whatever, but for me, they're what happened. They were documented, and I've got safety stuff to do in imaginary numbers, an imaginary best friend on an imaginary plane, that an actuarial, where they actually do everything down to a perfection the insurance companies use. That's where I need to be. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. That's where replica, R-E-P, the rep for L-I, for the C-A. I need replica at whatever 3,